Hey y'all, how we doing? Shout out once again to Bear Nation for tuning in to another episode of the Bear Necessities Podcast. I am your host, Rob Napoli. The Bear Necessities is a podcast where we sit down with entrepreneurs, ecosystem partners, and innovation folks to talk about what it takes and means to launch, create, and scale business across the world. We talk about the journey and the challenges of being entrepreneur-minded and how that translates into your journey, giving you the tools and knowledge to overcome challenges that you may be facing in your life's journey. The Bear Necessities is part of the Rise Up Media family, and we thank you for tuning in. Now, let's get into the show. If you hadn't already heard about it, or you don't already know, my new book, The Social Soul, How to Master Your Personal and Professional Brand with Intentionality and Authenticity, is out now. You can find it on Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Go check it out, purchase a copy, let me know what you think, leave me a review. I appreciate y'all for the support. Can't wait to hear from you what stood out the most. Hey y'all, we are back again with another episode of the Bear Necessities Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Napoli, and I'm excited because today we're in person as things keep opening back up and a lot of my guests are coming through New York. So we get to have a guest in person today, filming from Brooklyn at home. We got the setup going. And it's a company that I've had the opportunity to do some close work with. So I'm really excited about today's conversation. And my guest is Palesa. I always say your last name is Moloi.
Yeah, that's correct. You got it.
First time.
You got it.
Palesa is a qualified creative artist and the founder and CEO of Troob, a collaborative and flexible online platform that connects creatives to spaces such as art galleries, photo studios, event spaces. Troob is part of an accelerated program here in New York City, which is how Palesa and I met and started VC, and will be launching its new brand early in 2022. Palesa has also been awarded by one of the highest real estate associations in South Africa, called the Women's Property Network for Young Achiever Award and Mail and Guardian Top 200. So, Palesa, say hello to Bear Nation for me.
Hi, everybody. I'm super excited to be here. And yeah, thank you for the invitation. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
We've planned this, I think, since last year already.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to actually be here.
Yeah. And it's exciting too, because I think when we first met and started talking about this, your company was something very different. And for those listening in, and why in the intro I said, kicking off in 2022, is Palesa came through New York through an accelerator program called Startup with the original company called Parkupp.
Parkupp.
So tell me a little bit about what Parkupp was and what happened in New York that led you to say, you know what? I want to switch focus. What was that?
Focus.
As you kind of came through. So I kind of want to walk through that first.
Yeah. Well, let's start with, I guess, the genesis of Parkupp and how it started back in South Africa. So I was a trainee to become a qualified chartered accountant, which is a CPA here in the States. And as a trainee, I didn't have an allocated parking spot. And I drive a VW Polo. I don't know if you know, back in my country, those are known for highly wanted cars for thieves and all of that stuff. So here I am, always parking my car on the street. It was very uncomfortable. I always had to go down a 14-story building just to go check if my car's there, probably every 2 hours or so. So it got super unproductive. So then I kept on thinking, how can I solve this problem? How can I find a parking spot for myself? I managed to find, a parking lot that was empty.
Yeah.
And I spoke to one of the guards and I was like, hey, do you mind if I actually park here? I'll give you $20 a day or whatever the case may be. And that's how Parkupp started. Then I was like, okay, maybe I could start a platform where I could connect people that are looking for parking to, companies that actually have empty parking spaces. So this was back in 2016. So between 2016 and 2018, nothing happened. I was just, doing a lot of research, speaking to property owners and things like that. Just kind of understanding the market. But also I was working, So this was my side hustle.
Yeah.
Eventually, we got into this MC and solution space. It was an accelerator in Cape Town. So now I'm flying from Johannesburg to Cape Town to join this accelerator. And yeah, we were able to work on the solution, eventually launched in 2019, which was great. So we got, really good traction working with listed property funds in our country and things like that. But then COVID hit, as we all know, 2020. Yeah. Funny enough, what happened was I went to San Fran. Literally the week I landed back at home, that's when our president announced like a hard lockdown in our country. While I was on the flight, people were wearing masks and all of it. And I was like, what is going on, So it was quite an experience. So let's fast forward to 2021. I don't know how far Starter actually found us, to be honest. I actually have to ask them because I got an email. Hey, would you like to become a part of our accelerator? Yeah. This is what we do. We connect African startups from, international startups. Yeah. And we give them kind of like an entry into the US market, especially in New York. So I thought, okay, cool. Well, this is a great opportunity for my company because I've always envisioned Parkupp to become, like this global solution, whatever the case may be. So I accepted the invitation. I obviously couldn't join because of COVID, red list, But eventually I got here. Yeah. And I kept on thinking, is Parkupp, something that is scalable at this point? Coming into the US market, we already noticed that, there were a lot of parking companies doing what we're doing already. Yeah. So was it still worth us pursuing that market? And I remember you and I had multiple conversations. Do you want to still stay with parking or do other things? So looking at some of the data that we had and our customers, we had a lot of creatives that we were already working with that wanted other types of spaces that they couldn't find. And essentially that's how we've pivoted now to this parking platform to Troob. So it's still kind of the same technology, but focused on different spaces.
I think that's really interesting, right? Is you had an idea from a very personal experience, research, launch, accelerator, pandemic, come to New York and realize that Parkupp is not maybe the right solution for the US market or globally. Yeah. Right. And scalability was a big feature. And what I think is interesting is, okay, how do we use the technology we've built of matching people and spaces to something that has a bigger cause and bigger opportunity, but also the fact that already been having customers reach out to you saying, hey, can you help us find X, Y, or Z? I think it's really unique because you're a parking company with people asking for podcast studios or art studios or recording spaces. And that's, I think, unique. And so one of the cool things that was able to happen that, as an entrepreneur, I think is always a great ending is you're able to have a successful acquisition of the Parkupp assets. So, I think was it last year or this year, you were able to sell off the assets of the business and rebrand. So what does that mean? And I guess, what did that allow you to do as you handed off what you built for going on 6 years now and then starting over? Was that just kind of walk me through that experience and what that set you up for in the US market?
Sure. Well, I guess towards the end of the year and kind of after we've made that decision that we were actually going to pivot, we realized that we had to rebrand as well because, Parkupp can't really sell creative spaces because of the name association. So early this year, it was just 2022, I had already decided with my team that, we need to rebrand, but we can't run two companies because we don't have the capacity. Yeah. Interestingly enough, after we've made that decision, I'm not too sure if it's the universe kind of, being aligned to my own decision-making processes. I'm not sure. But we got an email from Mark Bradford, which is now, the person who's running Parkupp. And he was like, hey, I'm actually, in property. I've been in property for a long time now. He was a chairman of JLL, Southern Africa. And now he was transitioning into prop tech. So he was like, well, this is a brand that I love. I've actually been following your journey for quite a while now. Let's talk. What do you want? What do you want to get out of this? And to be honest with you, I was like, this is just going to be a conversation. It's not going to go anywhere. But yeah, Mark and I clicked. He loved what we're doing. We actually decided that even though he's taking Parkupp, he would also still like to work with us with Troob and everything else like that. So what it meant for me, I suppose, as an entrepreneur is, number one, sometimes you build something and you don't always know how it's going to work out. You could have like your end goal that, this is how I want it to be or whatever the case may be. But it's important to be flexible because along the way, things change. Your interests change as well. Yeah. So you can't really be married to your original idea. So it's very important to be flexible. But secondly, also valuing your work. Yeah. Because I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we tend to kind of like downplay the fact that we've been working on this for like 6 years. Yes, it might not necessarily be where we want it to be ultimately, but you have put in the work. So when I was having the conversations with Mark, it kind of gave me a sense of like self-confidence that, I've built something that somebody now sees value in and they want to continue and, continue that legacy. And I suppose it like opened up space for Troob, right? Because I kind of still felt that, there's still a lot of work to do for Parkupp, but I want to transition into Troob. How do I actually do that? Yeah. Now I know that like all these assets are handed over to somebody else who will give that full attention, and I don't have to think about it anymore. I can just literally only focus on Troob. Yeah. So it's literally just opened up that space for me to be able to run Troob the way that I want to. Yeah. And I suppose because now I'm not tied down to anything back at home, I'm fully immersed in like whatever's happening here in New York. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like we are here now. Yeah. Here now. So that's what's happened. Like it's just made this journey a lot simpler, I guess, and freer.
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs, when you have a company, whether you spend a year, 2, 6 years, right, it kind of becomes your baby and it's really hard to let go of it. So I think when you have that opportunity, because, we had Haptic Group recently get acquired in February by Move Ventures, who we'd partnered with for over a year. Mm-hmm. And at some point, my business partner, Phil, and I looked at each other and it's like, is this what we want to build? And are we the right people to build this to where it needs to go? Mm-hmm. And we said no. Mm-hmm. They were. And so that's why the acquisition made sense. Yeah. And so for you, same thing. You were able to find somebody that understood the value of what you had built with Parkupp, wanting to build it further, that could take it over because you're saying, and you knew, I don't want to be bogged down with having to run this company because I want to focus here.
Yeah. I love that. Sorry to, I was actually having a conversation with someone today and we spoke about that, leadership doesn't have to continue into, this, it doesn't have to be like endless or unlimited or whatever the case may be. Sometimes you can just build something and that was your purpose. Yeah. And then the next person comes in and takes it to wherever it needs to go. And as an entrepreneur, you need to understand that. Yeah. Because I think sometimes people hold on to things for longer than they should. Absolutely. And they strangle the company. Yeah.
and having the self-awareness so that that your heart's not in it. Mm-hmm. And I think so much so that it's, well, if I don't make this work, I'm seeing it as a failure. Or if I don't take this to where it needs to be, then like, why did I do it? And sometimes you just got to realize your purpose was to build something that somebody else can scale. Like,
100%.
Some of the best companies in the world, the best leaders of those companies were the company, leader 2, 3, or 5. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really important for people to realize. Yeah. And I think we've glorified a lot of it, and you saw these like early, big hits of like the Ubers, the WeWorks, LinkedIn, Twitter. You know what all those have in common? The original founders aren't leading the company anymore. And some of the biggest growth happened after. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's important. Yeah. And also I think that's important for you too, because as an entrepreneur, starting a new brand in a new city in a new market, you need to be all in. Mm. And I know that a lot of companies start things as a side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, if you want to make your side hustle your full hustle, it's never going to be, you have to take that leap.
Yeah.
And whatever that leap is when you get to a certain point. But I'll tell you that it'll never be your side hustle is so much bigger than your main hustle that you can leave.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to jump out of that and give it your full attention for it to scale to be self-serving, like truly self-serving.
I agree.
So I think that opens that up for you.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges you know, as you're in your early journey of Troob in New York City, you're kind of being present, going to these events. What are some of the challenges you are facing right now with a new brand, new company, and a new city now that you're actually here to build it?
I think that's a very interesting question because back at home, and I was just thinking about it the other day as well. Back at home, when I started Parkupp, I didn't have, you know, the property network. I didn't have a network in the property or like real estate sector. Mm-hmm. So I had to build everything from scratch. I didn't know anything about tech. I didn't know, you know. So at least now coming into New York, I kind of have a base of like how business runs.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest challenges for me right now is access to network, right? Yeah. I know how to kind of like build a product and all of that stuff. I know how to run a social media account.
Yeah.
But how do I get the right people to see it?
Yeah.
Right? Because New York City is like so big. it's so big.
Yeah.
I'm going to every networking event that I can go to every single day. But still, you know, sometimes you meet people and they just want to be your friend.
Yeah.
Or some days I actually go out and I don't meet anyone. Like I would be sitting in a room full of people. I'd go out alone, hoping that, okay, I'm probably going to meet somebody today. And I'll literally sit there the entire night. So more than anything, I think for me, it is about the people, meeting the right people, whether in property or creative people or whoever it is that I can meet in the city that will help me, I guess, unlock those networks. So right now, my plan is to network as much as I can so I can chip away at like this very big hurdle of, you know, having a solid network in New York.
Yeah. And, you know, I think, and we've talked about this a lot, and my book is about building a value-added network, which you've read. And I think the thing we have to think about, and to a lot of us out there, I get this a lot, like access to network, access to capital. And what I tell people is that if you want access to something, especially if it's capital, money, partnerships, you need to stop thinking of it as I'm looking for access to that, right? I need access to networking people. Yeah. And how do I meet people, build relationships? And how can I do that? Well, right now, digitally. Up until at least recently, we couldn't go to in-person events. So how do I do that digitally? How do I be authentic and reach out and create connections? You know, there's LinkedIn, there's Upstream, which you've been leveraging. There's Twitter, all these different things. And it's a combination of things, right? You need to engage first with the people that you want to talk to so that they can engage back with you, and it becomes that ability to see what you're building. Yeah. And that's something I know that you've been doing a lot of, and it's a big challenge because building a network and having access to network takes time. Because if everyone just opened up their network, they'd get taken advantage of, right? So you got to prove why you're worthy, what you can do in exchange of value. Yeah. And I think it's a challenge that many people face because they think that it should happen. Yeah. My idea is great. Why don't you see it? Well, it's something your idea isn't great. Your idea probably is great. And they do see it. They want to see, are you committed? Are you driven? Do you have grit? Are you going to be there the good times and the bad? Yeah. So I love when people talk about that and see that happening. And what's beautiful about New York is there's no shortage of things and people to meet and do.
Absolutely.
And you never know if you're on a train, in a coffee shop, sitting around a pool table, like at a bar.
we had a pool. Yeah, that was fun.
So a week ago, as we're recording this, my buddy and I took Les out to go play pool for the first time and throw darts for the first time. And the first game, we're sitting around shooting, and the pool table's set by the bathroom. And so this guy goes to wait for the bathroom, and Leslie didn't realize that he was waiting for the bathroom and thought he might have been waiting for the table or knew us. So she went up and said hi to him, was talking, and finally, like, the bathroom's opened up and she's still talking. At some point, he's just like, "Hey, nice to meet you, but I'm going to use the restroom.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, shit. Which is really funny. She did beat us in her first game of pool ever. And she has the weirdest dart throwing form. I had to teach her that. But we had fun playing darts.
Yeah.
But the thing is that you can meet people anywhere. And it is one of those things where everybody kind of knows somebody.
Yeah.
And so it's a great place to start here in New York City. What do you think, or I guess as you look at your plan, right, being here and doing things, what is your plan? Like, what is your plan? Are you here so you can't be here anymore? Like, what is your plan?
No, my plan is to be here forever if I could.
Yeah.
But I mean, you and I have so you've taught me a lot about like digital, networking. So it's I guess right now the plan is to execute all the things that we planned. So before I came here, I guess I was back at home for like 2 months, whatever the case may be. I did a lot of serial dating, dating online.
Yeah.
Like meeting up with, investors or co-founders or whatever the case may be that are based in New York. So right now I've just been setting up meetings with them, telling them about Troob, what I would like to achieve. And then what happens is that they say, oh, actually, I know somebody that could link you up with this person, or I know somebody that could actually get you access to this. So right now the plan is to meet those people, which I have been meeting them, and then meeting more people through them. But I suppose it's to also launch, and when I speak about launching, it's obviously launching, the website, which we are going to be, I guess, releasing it towards the end of the month. And my plan is to start with Brooklyn, because I love Brooklyn, and it's got a lot of, a lot of the places that we're looking for to add on our platform. So I've also started kind of cold emailing and cold calling people and saying, hey, I'm running this company. Would you like to meet up? Do you find value in what we're doing? And so it's kind of like customer discovery process, but also still networking at the same time. And it's growing our social media, just growing the brand in terms of awareness and presence. That's the plan. Yeah.
I love that. And I do Brooklyn has a lot of creative spaces.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a great network to tap into. There's a lot of also just good vibes and culture out here in terms of the creative ethos.
Yeah.
When you think of everything from film to recording music to podcasts to art. So I think that there's some really great opportunity and great space to have those conversations. And that's exciting to hear, as we look at where the business can grow and go and how to focus that, putting those one foot in front of the other and creating those networks will build out. And then you have, great conversations with, the team that acquired Parkupp, for example, the fact they want to support Troob. There's all this influx of, I think there's an engine behind that once you kind of make that early connection success happen, I think it will speed pretty quickly. So what is your big goal right now? We're in product market validation. This idea and the company of Troob was something that you really realized that transition of what you've built to what you actually want to create.
Yeah.
So what does success look like? I know that what you're trying to do here, right? We just walked through that path.
Yeah.
In 3 months from now, what does success look like for Troob?
For Troob. So I'm all about the numbers now. Initially when I started the business, I need to get funding, I need to, but at the end of the day, the customer is king, so the first thing that I guess in the next 3 months that we need to do is to get those listings and to get creatives using our platform and trusting that this is the community that they want to be a part of in terms of being able to find spaces, etc. Then I guess the last goal is that brand recognition. People need to be able to recognize Troob as that go-to place. If you're looking for a space as a creative, a musician, or whatever the case may be, Troob should be literally at the tip of your tongue.
Yeah.
And I think we would have achieved what we wanted to achieve, even if it's on a small scale, but we've got customers that trust us and they keep coming back for business. Then we've got a good story to tell to investors and say, this is our monthly recurring revenue. This is, we've got 1,000 listings. So we've got 1,000 listings on our platform and this is a usage rate.
Yeah.
Then we'll speak about, the next step, which is getting that investment.
I love that. I think everyone wants to try to get investment quickly, but if you can show traction first, then investment, it changes the game. And with that mindset, and I think over the next 3 months, that's a very lofty but achievable goal with the conversations with the space that we've been having.
Yeah.
And with where you're at, right? And so for those, as I kind of mentioned earlier, what my role is with Troob is I'm the entrepreneur in resident and advisor. My job is to help with strategy and overarching themes and really helping create roadmaps.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I can tell you about Troob that's really exciting and even less about Troob as a business, but as less as a person, is where that network can open up doors, because not just for Troob, but for bigger picture things, right? Sure. For creative cultural opportunities that the industry is. We see NFTs, we see all these things happening in Web3.
Yeah.
The ability for that to scale.
Absolutely.
And what creative space means to many people, I think is really exciting. So for you as an entrepreneur, what does New York, the experience of living in New York, mean to you, coming from South Africa?
Wow. I think this opportunity for me is doing business on an international scale. Mm-hmm. So the one thing that I've seen is that New York has influenced New York itself, not just America, just New York has influenced so many different parts of the world. And I'll give an example. So back at home in Cape Town, we actually have quite a lot of restaurants that are named after some of, the places that we see here in New York. And I didn't actually know that, until I came here and I started going to all these different places. Like, hey, wait, why is that cool? It's very interesting, but it shows the kind of influence that it has. Yeah. So starting our brand out here, and for example, when we want to, go back home, we would have built that, that trust. Yeah. It will be much better going back home and saying, hey guys, we've built a product that works. We want to take it back home. Here's how to use it. Mm-hmm. People will most definitely want to, interact with a brand that's trusted on that kind of scale. So for me, it really is about that international reach that we'll be able to have just by building something here in New York. But I suppose on a personal level, it's just, New York is a very interesting place in that I think it's very liberal, right? Yeah. But if you kind of have access to all of that, you also need to have your own ethos, that these are my limits and these, you know what I mean? Because having exposure to so much that's happening in the city, it's very easy to get lost in all of it. So from a personal level, it's testing me as a person, but it's also teaching me a lot about myself. Yeah. So that's what New York means to me.
I love that. And I know that it seems cliche, but if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And what it means truly is this city moves so fast and there's so much that happens with 9 million people in 11 square miles that if you don't have a bit of focus, you can get lost in the sauce really quickly.
Absolutely.
And I think to challenge yourself with a new brand and a new business after the success that you had with Parkupp and where you're growing, to do that here will benefit you hugely as a person, an entrepreneur, and as a business, right? And so I think that's what I love about it, and why I originally joked when I moved to New York, I was like, we're going to be there for 4 or 5 years and we'll move. And I've been here for 6 and I have no intentions of moving. And part of it is because the energy in the city And those things that you just described have just opened up so many opportunities.
Absolutely.
And it's really important to not forget who you are and have your own ethos, because it's really easy to get dragged. So having that really teaches you how to have you have to have strength and trust in yourself.
Yeah.
You learn really quickly to get over imposter syndrome, or at least how to manage it if you're not getting over it, because you have to have strength that you're doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
So I love that.
Love that.
Well, I'm excited for you too, as well as getting to experience. I know there's a lot of stuff that we've talked about on your New York bucket list. So I think a great question is, what is, like, if you have one thing that you could do before you, say you're leaving New York tomorrow, there's one thing you have to do that you haven't done yet.
That I haven't done yet. Oh my God.
What's kind of on the top of your list?
Wow. Top of my list. I have so many things that I want to do in the city. But I really want to go to MoMA. I haven't been. Like, I know people are like, what? You haven't been to MoMA? You work in the creative industry. But like you said, there's so much to do in the city that, like, even some of the biggest brands, you kind of forget about them. You're like, oh no, I'll go to this small little art gallery because it's cooler at the time. So I really want to go to MoMA. It's an art gallery that's spoken about everywhere in the world. And I need to go see why. Yeah. Right? I need to go see
I love MoMA, and I'm a member to MoMA. And like, that's something that, like, my wife and I go like 2, 3, 4 times a year, easy.
That's so
and
cool.
It's so big. And even if you walk through the same places, you see something new.
Yeah.
Because at some point, you get overwhelmed with how much you're seeing and what you can actually absorb.
I must say, like, the whole of New York is overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot happening.
Everything is overwhelming. I love that. So one of the questions I always like to ask everyone that comes on the show as we get to the end of the show here is, what do you think your superpower is?
My superpower. I really think that, like, my superpower is my ability to connect with new people. It's kind of like what you said earlier. Here's a guy who's just waiting to go into the bathroom, and I, by chance, like, misinterpret what he's doing. And I'm like, hey, what's your name? I think it's just being able to connect with human beings in general about whatever it is that they love. So today, like I said to you, I had a meeting with a girl from Kenya who's running her tech startup. We were supposed to chat about business, but we ended up speaking about, like, energy and the universe and all these things. And I guess my superpower when I'm meeting new people is quickly identifying what makes this person tick.
Yeah.
What like, put aside everything else, like money, cars, whatever the case may be. Like, what does this person actually care about? And that's my superpower.
I love that. And one of the things that I talk about, and I've talked about with other people before, and my wife always, like, Christine would always say that she thinks it's weird. Like, you're kind of a chameleon. Like, you kind of blend in everywhere. And, for a while I thought it was a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing, because in an age of everyone having strong opinions or this and that, like, finding commonality is a great way to build rapport. Yeah. Whether that's a business relationship, a personal relationship, something deeper. Because you may not have to believe in the same thing of everything to your client. You and the client may not believe in everything on the same page, right? But you have commonality, and that's what makes the relationship work between a customer and a buyer, right? Or, partnerships, all these things. And so one of the things that I think is so unique, and it's a skill that needs to happen, especially as an entrepreneur growing a business, is the fact that you can find commonality in the world. Yeah. Because when you find those common threads, rapport is built. When rapport is built, network happens. And that's where that it starts to flow. It's an interconnectivity of things. So I love it. Anyways, I think it's a really great superpower.
I love
it. What's a good book, resource, show that you would recommend somebody to read if they're looking at entrepreneurship right now that they should check out?
Yeah. I've been reading this book, not because I haven't finished it, but I've been reading it for, like, I think I've read it 5 times. It's a very short book. It's called Damn Good Advice by George Louis. He's actually worked with so many advertising companies, but the way that he thinks and some of the advertising campaigns that he's come up with for like MTV and all these big brands, mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah.
Mind-blowing. Obviously, don't take everything, just take things with a pinch of salt, I guess, and question everything that you read. But I think that's been the most expansive book.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I've been rereading it.
Yeah.
Because I kind of want to get into that culture of the one thing that he speaks about is we're here to disrupt. We're here to kind of provoke.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what Troob is going to be doing. We had to provoke people to think, a different way and kind of live outside the box. Not just think outside the box, but like truly live outside the box.
I love that. One of the things that I do, because I read a lot of books, as you are seeing here.
Yeah, everywhere.
I don't know if you look back there. I have a whole
bunch of them.
But what I do is I sign and date whenever I read it. So I read it multiple times because then I can kind of think about what I pull from each time. And so anyways, I like to sign it in. If I hand it off, I'll have somebody else sign and date it. And then if I ever lose the book and hopefully pass it off, it's like, hey, the one thing is sign and date the back.
Yeah.
So anyways, this is something I love to do with books. What advice would you give to anyone who's out there that's Gen Z, millennial, entrepreneur-minded, thinking about being an entrepreneur? What would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
My advice is have no final form. I don't believe that like you arrive at a destination or like, I don't know, you get to a point where you've done everything. It's just about continuously learning, seeking out new experiences, exploring. I was actually thinking about, I watched the Oprah show one time and she was speaking about Michael Jackson, right? How Michael Jackson, after he hit Thriller, right? After that, he was constantly chasing Thriller.
Yeah.
Because he stayed in that era.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why he kind of like consumed himself. And if you look at like Oprah's journey, she did the Oprah Winfrey show. Now she's moved on to something else. And she's continuing to learn and grow. And she's still alive, like in a I guess, metaphoric sense in that sense. But I think if you continuously learn, seek out new experiences, you continue to live.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that saying that like other people die while they're still alive, like while they're still walking on the earth.
Yeah, it's because, I think that the thing that we forget, and especially with entrepreneurship in a business, is it's just in life in general, is we think we know what success needs to look like. And once we get there, it's like we made it. We made the top of the mountaintop.
Yeah.
And then there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And you need to have a new mountaintop to climb.
Absolutely.
And that could be a number of different ways. And the other thing is having a final form in mind. You could build something great, but if it's not final form, you don't think you've built it, and you like don't actually realize the amazing things you did, and you are blinded by what you think final form should be versus what you've actually created. So I love that advice. How can Bear Nation find you? Where can they get involved with you and in Troob, and how can they find you?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn under Palesa Moloi. And we are on all the social media platforms like Instagram, Twitter, So if you just search Troob.space.
Troob.space.
Yeah, you'll be able to find us on Twitter and all the other social media platforms.
Excellent. I'll make sure to link your LinkedIn, the company website, the company Twitter, the company Instagram, all into the show notes. They can easily find you and connect. Bear Nation, if you could ever be of service to Troob or want to connect and help along, like whatever, reach out to Lessa or let me know. We have some big plans and road mapping on what's going to happen this year. So I'm excited that we got to do this finally.
Yeah. That
you're back in New York. That we got to record from my home studio in Brooklyn. As I know you're moving out to Brooklyn and not quite neighbors, but close enough that it's not too far away.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you sharing so much with us, and really enjoyed getting to have this conversation. So thank you for joining Bear Nation here today.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really, really enjoyed this. And yeah, I'm really excited to connect with new people that want to have a chat. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Connect with her. I promise you won't be disappointed. Bear Nation, thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay well and rise up. Bear Nation, once again, thank you for tuning in and listening to the Bear Necessities Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review. It really does help and means a lot to us at the show. And I want to thank our friends over at Fin. Fin is a social good platform that creates employee engagement and builds culture. It's our mission to support and give back to the communities that we serve around the world. And we do this by giving every guest on our show a $10 donation to the cause of their choosing using the Fin platform. Until next time, thank y'all, stay well, and rise up.